Hello, I'm Doug Roche. Welcome to my website. About a year ago, I brought out a book called Peacemakers: How People Around the World Are Building a World Free of War, in which I interviewed some 60 leaders around the world on the issues of peace today. I've been trying to look at, the two ways in which people see the world today. One view of the world sees chaos everywhere. Not since World War II have there been so many refugees, displaced people, asylum seekers. Extremism and nationalism are on the rise. Terrorist groups are triggering humanitarian crises. But yet there's another view, that despite the problems that we see highlighted in the news every day, the world as a whole is moving to a higher stage of civilization. All the big indicators of modern life: health, education, commerce, science, energy, education, shipping, communications, transportation, law, women's rights, all of these fields are expanding. So which is the real world? Both these views reflect reality. So how are we to make sense of such divergence, and how can we build hope for an enduring peace? In 4 decades in public life as a parliamentarian, an ambassador, and civil society activist, I've been preoccupied with this question. And I find myself coming back repeatedly to the United Nations, the only place where 193 nations come together to work out in 6 languages their global problems. With the United Nations reaching its 70th anniversary, I decided to write a new book on the United Nations, and I want to show you the cover of this new book. In trying to make sense of the divergent problems in the world today, you've got to look at the United Nations, the prime instrument for peace. How successful is it? That's what I'm trying to answer in my book, The United Nations in the 21st Century, grappling with the world's most challenging issues: militarism, the environment, human rights, and inequality. The record of accomplishments of the United Nations, on the one hand, is astounding. The Millennium Development Goals, started 15 years ago by the UN, has lifted 1 billion people out of extreme need. It's the most successful anti-poverty movement in history, and the UN has now started a new program to eradicate the worst forms of poverty by 2030. And the UN delivers food to some 90 million people. It has 50 million refugees under its care. There are hundreds of treaties that try to bring countries together in many different fields. There's 120,000 peacekeepers deployed in 16 missions around the world, and 13 additional political missions. All of these are averting future genocides that you're not going to read about because they won't happen in later years. The UN is responsible for aviation safety, detecting global warming, and rising literacy rates among the world's poorest. But at another level, the UN is criticized for its failures. It hasn't stopped the slaughter of innocent people in Syria and Iraq. There are still 1 million destitute people. Speeches without end are made at the green marble podium in the General Assembly, and they float off into the atmosphere. When international tensions mount, the big powers frequently bypass the very body they set up to guarantee security. So in looking at the sprawling organization that's headquartered in New York, with branches in Geneva, Vienna, Nairobi, and outposts in virtually every question, I've asked myself this basic question about the human security agenda. Is the United Nations advancing it? And the answer to that question is definitely yes. The pillars of human security are arms control and disarmament, sustainable economic and social development, environmental protection, the advancement of human rights. That's the agenda for peace. Can the 21st century be a time of peace, or are we mired in the muck of hatred? The United Nations is trying to lift up humanity to show that over the horizon, clearer waters are ahead. So now at the 70th anniversary, I think it's time to present a level-headed assessment of where the UN is today and where it's going and how it affects the life of every individual on the planet. I hope you enjoy the book and my website.